Welcome to This Is My Space, the podcast that takes you on a wild ride through the crowded mind of author MC Castile, affectionately known as Mac. She's not your typical host. Whether it's the inspiration behind her novels or diving headfirst into religion, politics, or aging, Mac ventures where others won't. For her, it's about creating a space where voices can be heard, opinions can clash, and ideas can flow. She's here to ignite curiosity within you while offering a refreshing perspective on the world we live in. Sit back, hold on, and tune in for Mac's latest episode.
Hey, it's Mac, and I want to address some things because the goal of this podcast is to give you hope, right? And the way to give you hope is to give you perspective, and not just the gloom and doom of the situation that we are currently in. So, I want to preface this by saying that, this is an all hands on deck situation. Like, if it weren't, I would just go write novels in my free time and not worry about politics. But this is an all out. It's going to take we the people. We cannot rely on politicians. The Democrats can't seem to pick a leader. The confidence in that party as is at an all-time low, thanks to Chuck Schumer and like 7 other Democrats. Now, before we get into the latest go round, let's just talk about, this idea that the Democrats are ever going to save us, okay? They're no different than the Republicans. There are so many of them are career politicians taking money from billionaires via lobbyists. So many of them are. So the fact that there was no plan put into place after Madam Vice President was, not declared the winner should indicate like how many of them were willing to just ride this situation out. So the ones that we can trust, the ones that we can respect are the ones that stepped up in spite of the fact that the party doesn't have a leader. So I know that they elected a new DNC chair. I think his name's Ken Martin. I haven't seen him do shit. Okay. So, all of that being said, confidence is at an all time low. People are calling for Chuck Schumer to resign as minority caucus leader. And in order to do some sort of damage control, he went on The View and is trying to justify his existence as a leader. Here's the thing, maybe it was a lose lose situation. I know some, podcasters think that. The issue isn't that, he went along with the budget and he got like 7 other Democrats to do it too, apparently. It's not that. The problem is that they passed a budget without any input from Democrats at all. And when you co-sign that, you're basically co-signing taking away your power. And that's the real problem. That's the issue here. Is you pass something without input from Democrats, what leverage they did have, they didn't use. And if he can't recognize as a leader that he failed in that department, he shouldn't be leading. He should retire. He should allow AOC to take his seat, quite frankly, in I think 2028. Right now, as it stands, like 10% of the people believe that AOC is the actual leader of the party. I feel like she's a co-leader with Jasmine Crockett. Like Jasmine Crockett is like relentless. So is Representative Stanton. And there's a bunch of other people. Senator Jamie Jaskins. I'm not sure how to say it. He's been out there too. Bernie Sanders, who's an independent these days, he's been out there. He hasn't stopped. There were plenty of people who recognized that Rome was burning and that we had to do everything we could to put out the fire. And it's a credit to like Indivisible, the People's Union, and other grassroots organizations like 50, I think it's 5051, who didn't wait either. They immediately began to organize. Cliff Cash is a comedian who took it upon himself to like start organizing protests. He, I think on Saturday, called for a protest outside the Heritage Foundation on Sunday and he got people to show up. He took his protest on Saturday right up to the offices of CNN. He's like, either you show this protest or we're going to bring it to your door. So a lot of people, the Veterans Association is also like they rallied on March 15th, I think it was, across the country. So the movement is building absolutely unequivocally without a Democratic leader. Like, I don't know where President Obama is. Like, I don't know. President Biden is under a lot of pressure to keep his family safe. So you have Trump throwing out this idea that Biden's pardons were like void because he used an auto pen to sign, and a federal judge clapped back and said, well, then I guess that we need to relook at some of the January 6th pardons, don't we? Because they were also signed with auto pen. Now, it's not that he gives a shit about Biden or his kids who he pulled Secret Service protection from. He needs a distraction. Like, he just admitted last weekend that he doesn't like people to talk about the trans stuff unless it's up against an election. So there are a lot of political pundits who will say the Republican Party's message for more than, I don't know, 30 years, 40 years, 50 years has been to distract and divide. So they get people hating their neighbors so that their neighbors can't compare notes and see that they actually are on the same team, and that it's the rich people stoking the division so that we don't team up and take them down. They've done this since the feudal system. And by they, I mean rich people. Republicans have done it, I don't know, like at least since Reagan. So that being said, again, all of this stuff with Biden, the pardons and pulling security from his kids, that is to distract from the fact that he has not been able to get Putin to acquiesce to a ceasefire. Now, I know he's meeting with him on March 18th. I don't yet know the outcome. I haven't had time to look. I'll try to come back, later this week with an update about that. We need to talk about Russia. Like, we need to talk about how this country has forgotten that the real boogeyman that we should most be concerned with is the KGB and the former KGB. And Putin is former KGB. And once upon a time, there were plenty of people who understood how much they truly hated the United States of America. Unfortunately, too many people have forgotten this fact. The older people, the younger people don't understand, but the older people do. They remember living through that era when all they ever wanted to do was take us down. I mean, there's an entire TV series about sending KGB agents into America and infiltrating our country. I mean, it's a plot of a Marvel movie, for crying out loud. I mean, I don't understand how we got here. Um, anyway, Russia's a problem. And I don't really stay up at night worrying necessarily about us being divided up and sent to camps. I don't actually worry about that. I worry about Putin blowing us off the map. So I know that a lot of other podcast hosts, independent news sources like myself, keep saying, like, he's going to turn it into a dictatorship. He's going to turn it into a dictatorship. The Supreme Court and the Republicans, and they're all going to fold and they're not going to hold the line. And he's got them in his pocket and blah, blah, blah. Look, I'm going to tell you this because it's truth and I've got facts to back it up. So the Supreme Court that he stacked, those people are opportunistic. I'm not talking about Amy Coney Barrett. She's a handmaid in a cult. That woman's going to put her ideology first, right? Like, that's why she had no problem like overturning Roe versus Wade. It's the guys that are more opportunistic and don't have an ideology. So they can sit there and bullshit us all day long about, how they believe that X, Y, and Z. But in actuality, the ones that have sold us out are more about that paycheck, right? Well, like, look at this situation this way. And this is why it bothers me so much when people say that the Supreme Court's just going to give it. It's not true. It's unequivocally not true. It's not that they are in a cult and worshiping the orange donut. It's not that. They're opportunistic people. And they have used their political clout and power in order to enrich themselves. I think that's a fact. I think Clarence Thomas is a good example of that, and all of the stuff that he didn't declare from his billionaire benefactor. I think Brett Kavanaugh has a lot of questions. There are things to be asked about his finances as well. So this is my opinion. This is my belief that these are opportunistic people who rely on their political power in order to enrich themselves. Now, if you take away somebody's political power, so let's say it becomes a dictatorship and you suspend the Constitution, what does that do for the Supreme Court? Well, these opportunistic assholes who have sold us out time and time again, they no longer have any power. And if they have no power, they have no leverage. And if they have no leverage, then they're not going to be able to enrich themselves. So when people are so sure that the Supreme Court is just going to fall in line, I want to remind them they're not going to do anything that's going to be at their own personal detriment. They're not looking to sacrifice their power, which would happen in a dictatorship where the Constitution has been suspended. They are not looking to do that. And to confirm what I have strongly believed for quite a while now, I just want to say that after Donald Trump, the Orange Donut, talked about impeaching federal judges who are ruling consistently against him, a Supreme Court Justice, John Roberts, said in a rare statement that Trump needs to back off. He said for more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. Roberts said Tuesday in a rare and brief statement issued just hours after Trump publicly joined demands by his supporters to remove judges he called crooked. So this is him saying, you are not welcome to our power. And I'm telling you, if these opportunistic assholes have to choose between themselves or Donald Trump, they're going to choose themselves. Absolutely. 100%. Every time. So I don't understand the absolute certainty in which people talk about the Supreme Court falling in line. There's no evidence to support that. Yes, they have made some really bad decisions. Yes, they have probably benefited financially from them. And yes, I'm sure that they would like to continue benefiting financially for as long as they're alive. And they can't do it in a dictatorship. It's the same thing with the Republicans. You know, we haven't gotten to the Republican Congress and senators' pain points yet, but we will. There will come a point where they will have to choose between their own political power and whatever they're getting from Donald Trump. They will have to choose. The people will force them to choose. There's no other way out. So I want people to keep in mind that sometimes when we're dealing with the crooked and opportunistic, that can actually be used to our advantage. So there's reason to have hope. There are all of these protest movements that are growing every single day. More and more people are waking up to the idea that they cannot sit back and let this shit play out. And those people are going to join with us, and they are going to help us ensure that we don't fall into a dictatorship. And in the background of all of this, around the world, people are supporting us. So have hope. I'll be back soon. Keep the faith. Sincerely, Mac.